consumer revenue. I think premium content is working in some places. I think membership, the ability to support works. Patronage, if you look at things like De Correspondent in the Netherlands, El Diario in Spain, Zetland in Denmark, these are working as patronage. So I think there are opportunities for consumer revenue, but this notion that we've had many false messiahs in our business. Tablets were going to save us. Native advertising was going to save us. Programmatic advertising was going to save us. Paywalls were going to save us. There is no one messiah. We have to have many business models. That's why it's important the center exists to experiment with these. Louise, please don't come in with arguments.
So if you could just pass it behind you.
Great.
Thanks, Tim. And then we've got one over here.
Hi, I was just wondering how many people and who it is who determines the validity of a site. When you were talking about, whether a site is valid or not, for the 3-year-old asking for positions on climate change, who and how many people determine where she goes in her search?
So there's different answers to this. In terms of the bad fruit that we have in the historical project, it's very apparent. I started looking through the list, and it is a frightening exercise to go to the links and see what's there. And it's funny how much they copy each other. One of the people involved in this project said that they see a faked photo, and they recognize and verify that it's faked, and then they search in Google and find out how many other sites use that exact same photo, and it may be hundreds. So that part is that's the easy part, right? That's the real easy part, is to look for this low-hanging, rotten fruit. The real question you're asking is how much we trust Google or Facebook or anybody making this judgment. The way Google operates, as they've explained it to me, is that they put out, that they made this public. There's a very long document that shows how sites are graded on quality and reliability. And then they have human beings, yes, God bless, human beings, look at those sites and judge them on these criteria. From that, they get a data set that they put their artificial intelligence behind to recognize the signals of quality to try to automate this process and scale it. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Look at the case of Facebook and their algorithm saying that a photo with a child who is naked equals child pornography, kill it. Well, of course, the famous napalm photo from Vietnam was marked as pornography, not recognizing that the real pornography was the napalm. So the algorithm is stupid. The algorithm has to be taught. But without the algorithm, they can't scale these judgments. So it's not a small number of people doing this. It is an effort for them to try to find wide judgment and scale in this. What we also need to do is we in media and journalism should help them. So, I've talked to people at the search engines. They would like us to do more, give them more signals of reliability. There's a project called the Trust Project, which is asking journalism organizations to sign up to say, yes, we fact check, yes, we have an ethics statement, yes, we have a user profile, and so on and so forth. As signals of quality that the platforms can then use to say, aha, that's a good site versus a bad site. And clearly, Breitbart can come along and say, well, I do all those things. So we're probably going to have auditing structures to do this as well. I'm on a podcast every week called This Week in Google, and last week we talked about the ability for technology to instantly fake, to put mouths into a person's, words in a person's mouth on video. What the hell does this do with fact checking going forward? And I said, well, we're probably never going to know that that video was fake. We have to trust the sources. This is an opportunity for a flight to quality. It's why a journalism school matters. Because we need to be able to create sources who are trusted in this way so that then people like platforms can use that to make judgment. But it's not easy.
So we've got one here.
Hi. Actually relates to the last question a little bit, because you said that you want the platforms to account for the manipulators. So my big fear with any effort in that path is that the people that are behind these manipulations, I mean, like, if you think about climate change, people that voted for Trump, we're talking about half the population here. And every single one of us has beliefs that are demonstrably untrue. So the second we get the platforms that start accounting for untruths, you're going to get all these people that are already viewing Google and Facebook as liberally biased outlets. They will leave. And I'm already seeing that there's, I found out a new platform recently called Gab, which is the alt-right, the Twitter for the alt-right, whatever. So they're going to start building their own social media networks and just go elsewhere. And so the fear we have currently of echo chambers in social media will actually finally be revealed with different social media platforms. And we'll no longer know that we're in echo chambers because we will only see the opinions that agree with us, which is much worse than the current situation.
If that happens, Facebook is screwed. right? So I think that they have a business interest in trying to not let that happen. And that's why they have to worry about the quality of the experience there and the civility of that experience. That's why I'm troubled by Twitter. I love Twitter because of its openness, but I now come to fear that openness leads inevitably to trolling. It becomes a breeding ground for trolls. So yes, we could split up into 1,000 Twitters. God help us. But I don't think that's going to happen just because we want to connect with other people. And we all have uncles and aunts who may be crazy and believe things we don't believe, and we still love them. And we have to figure out how to band together better. I'm an optimist to a fault, but I think that oftentimes the business models of even social media are attacked in this way. But I think the business model is what gives me hope that they've got to figure this out and come up with a better experience for all of us. I won't run around anymore.
You don't want to walk around.
Well, no, I just thought it was talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Where's the other mic? Oh, you've got one.
Thank you very
We
much.
both run around.
I've got a couple of questions, but I'll start with one. Lynn Davis from Activate UTS. A question about journalists, and we talk about, you say journalists listening. Where would a journalist or journalists go to listen? Where do they go?
To a community, to people. So in the social journalism program, we insist that the young journalists go and find a community that is self-defined. That is to say that millennial is a bullshit community. There's no such thing as millennial. Nobody here is that age walks up and says, hi, I'm Jeff, I'm a millennial, right? In the United States, Hispanic is a bullshit community. It's what Anglos call people who speak a language they don't speak. So those externally defined communities we won't accept. It has to be an internally defined community. And then we tell them, observe, like an anthropologist, listen, understand the community's needs. It's build trust with that community. Find the leaders in that community and find out whether they have credibility or not. And then bring back evidence of those needs. Don't bring it back to your presumptions. Bring back that evidence of needs and see how you can serve them. It's a long process, but it's the hardest, it's a truer kind of journalism, I believe.
You know what's so interesting about that is when you talked about it, it made me think about what we do in digital now. It's really user research where you actually find out what people want and build something around them. So it's that real convergence of journalistic with the digital.
You're right, whether you call it a market or a community,
Yeah.
if you're going to be good at creating a new product, you've got to listen to your customers.
Exactly.
Same
But
difference.
still, that's a struggle still in Australia, because even looking at change and managing change and digital delivery of any content, regardless of it's video or written or visual, is that we're still looking at a lot of large organisations are still looking at platform and process before people. So there's still a lot of work to do on the fact that, you know, you say that the change is very much with content and people, but it's actually still very high here with
Yeah,
that.
I've seen news organizations that probably separate themselves and say, well, we have a mobile staff and a video staff and a print staff. And no, you've got the same people across these platforms. Okay, I'll give up on the microphone.
One up
The
there.
seats, yes. I'll just sit here. There's someone over there who's dying too.
Yeah. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question around the behaviour aspect of this whole process, in particular in civility engagement as an alteration, almost accidentally, or of behaviour modification from algorithms. So the Facebook example. And you mentioned the way that humans, the more of the stuff that they like that they get, the less inclined they are to be attracted to the opposing viewpoint. So
There's disagreement about that research, but that's one
okay,
reason.
yeah, that was mentioned. So I'm just thinking in the concept of people that live in a world full of algorithms now that are feeding them their own desires in order to help manipulate them along certain pathways, often towards buying things, and a world full of media organisations that need to get revenue in order to fund journalism, and the fight to get eyeballs based on the manipulation of that process. One is, how do we help people discover their civility in that environment? And the second one is, how do we allow them to hear journalism again?
That's the goal. I also think that we have to enable them first to hear their fellow citizens again. And we don't now. We've got to figure that out. I'm talking about from America because we think we're the center of the universe, and so all we do is talk about America. And I come here and I would far rather learn. I think that Australia is proving right now to be ahead of us in this battle for civility. It could be because it hasn't hit you yet, or it could be because you're better at it. I think it's the latter. We have things to learn.
But is it just the responsibility of journalists?
It's not just the journalists, it's also the public. And I think that this is why we should be doing things like convening communities into conversation. We shouldn't just be. So when I taught social journalism, one thing I learned two things from my students there. I learned many things, but two major lessons for me. One is the notion of what I say is externally focused versus internally focused journalism. Externally focused journalism is, I'm going to tell your story to the world and good things will happen. Internally focused journalism says, what are the information needs of the community? So we want to do both. The externally focused journalism does tell the world, and we'll always have that, and it does reflect. The internally focused journalism says, what do you need to know? You're a refugee. What do you need to know tonight to get across the border, or to educate your child, or to get a job, or to learn a language? A feature story is not going to do you any good in that case. Right? So those are different needs, different kinds of journalism. The second thing I've seen from my social journalism students is that I said, go to a community, go to a community, go to a community. I was wrong. Communities never live in isolation. And the journalism is most needed where the conflict zone happens at the intersection of another community. Right? So Trump voters and Clinton voters. Spaceship was doing a project for African American and white students in Alabama schools. These two communities the journalism needs to bring them value as they potentially conflict. We've got to prove that value to them. This is not going to be easy. In terms of the algorithm making decisions for us, yeah, but the truth is that newsrooms were also black boxes. We were never terribly transparent. We had power. We were going to tell you what matters, right? We loved that while it lasted. But it's gone.
Hi.
Yep. Yep.
It's Melanie James from University of Newcastle, to be down here in Kent. I actually teach and research in the area of public relations. And I think what really struck me a few weeks ago at the Vivid Festival in Sydney was that large non-media corporate brands are actually seeing a role for themselves in picking up some of the civility, some of the news, some of the branding, some of the opinion shaping. And it's not always immediately apparent that it's about selling products, but obviously it is at the bottom. But I'm wondering whether you have any views, comments, or what you've actually sort of seen in that non-media corporate world in regards to picking up some of this slack, I suppose.
In a larger new information ecosystem, not so much a news information ecosystem, but an information ecosystem, companies do bring value, right? They have facts. When I want to buy a phone, I'm going to go to the phone manufacturer over someone who's copying things to find the specs of the phone.
This was actually more in the realm, I suppose, of, say, Unilever, Dove, going into kind of like, well, the government's not addressing this. Where are people getting the information around the situation of women in a particular situation?
So the sort of branded content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
branded content, but also almost conscious capitalism.
Yeah, I hope so. I think one truth of this world is that your customers can now talk about you. And so you can't be as evil as you used to be. And that being the case, smart companies will realize that they do hold a responsibility to contribute constructively. However, they must do that with transparency. They do have interests, and we have to be there. And that's the danger of sponsored content, native advertising, whatever we want to call it, is that when we strive to fool our readers, we sell our seed corn. And so we have to be careful about not playing along with that and doing that responsibly. It can be done. I hope it's done. But neither am I going to presume that every corporation is going to do it. Companies are companies.
And the huge influencers, the bloggers.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off because we're running out of time and we've got quite a number of, we've got one question here, and hang on, we've got one here and then we've got one here, but I think we're going to have to stop. Someone's going to need to wind up quite soon. So could you keep your questions short, please?
Very short. It's about user behaviour. And I was just wondering if any of the research you've done, there's been significant differences between different generations in terms of how users behave, and what that says about where we're going in the future.
Thank you.
We haven't done any research yet. We're just starting, and I've asked for. I just got a report from a researcher on whether or not media literacy and news literacy is working against various groups. One of the arguments is that it's not a problem of young people; it's a problem of old people. So I don't know yet. I think that's interesting. I think that we can't presume. I often hear insults of young people. Well, they don't care about privacy. They don't care about privacy. Bullshit. Of course, the future is theirs, and they're going to fix what we've messed up. People my age. But I think that the behaviors are different, and thus the way we build for people has to be different as we go.
Okay, we're here.
Hi, Jeff. My question is actually about the young people. We're talking so much about a state of transition that aren't we risking disenfranchising those sub 25 for whom it just is? They don't know what transition is.
It's a great question. Yes, but I also find my students come in, my students' median age is about 26, 27, and they come in aspiring to what they know. They want to come in and write for the New Yorker. Good luck, but I would love to do that too, right? And I tell them, fine, have that ambition if you like, but no, you have a larger responsibility to reinvent and rethink the possibilities of journalism. And learn what you're going to learn here, accept those things that make sense, and carry on those internal verities, but challenge and question everything we teach you, and ask, how did we get here? Why are we here? Why is this way? And part of the problem with us as journalists is we tend to find complaints and write about it and then go to the bar. And I always tell my students that scientists and engineers look for problems and find solutions. Entrepreneurs look for problems and find opportunities. We in journalism have to do a better job of finding problems and opportunities. So I don't think we should presume that the young people around today necessarily, even they, are still bound by this analog of the past that we've given them. We've got to help support them to break them out of the presumptions that we gave them.
We're down here.
Over here too. I'll be quicker so we can get more.
I'll be very quick. Hi, Jeff. Corinne Quadger from Macleay College. Nice to see you. So what you've described of being in a community and listening, that's beyond the purview of individual media outlets, especially in the current market. So for that to work, what does good look like? What does success look like?
I don't think it is beyond the purview. I work with newspapers and say that they've got to rebuild themselves around communities. One editor of a paper in America said, you know, we got two houses. One of them is on fire. That's the old business model. And the other one is the house that Jarvis is trying to tell us to build a room at a time. But he doesn't have a blueprint. But I believe that we've got to build that new house a room at a time, a community at a time. We've got to learn these new skills of listening to communities and rebuild the business around relevance that way. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be expensive. We're going to be filled with failure. But I think that what the internet fundamentally killed is the mass media business model. With it, mass media.
I'm just going to jump into for 1 second. The ABC has one correspondent for China. It's 1 billion people. So is it really possible?
Well, internationally it's difficult. I had this argument with a writer about foreign bureaus, the LA Times. And somebody said, shouldn't the LA Times, Jeff, of all people, have an Asian correspondent? And I said, one person to cover Asia? How absurd. There could be other ways to serve that community, having multilingual people in Los Angeles reading media that already exists, working in partnership. This idea that we all have to do everything ourselves doesn't work anymore. We're terribly inefficient as an industry. We copy each other to get our own business model forces us to do this. We copy each other so we have our own page full with our own content, to get our own page view with our own ad on it, with our own pennies. That's an inefficient business. We have to specialize more. I said I'm going to be brief and I love it.
Okay, right at the back here.
Hello. Right at the back. Hi. Emmanuel Alfreus, I'm with one of the local banks. I'm interested in your views on public or government-funded media. How accretive or dilutive is it to the future that you're envisaging? If you're in the public sector, let's say the ABC, there's a lot of pressure to toe the government's line. If you're in the private sector, you're arguing that there's free content making our business models harder to deliver. So I'm wondering your views on that.
A lot of people say to me, Jarvis, if we just had BBC, the ABC, or the CBC in the United States, or the ZDF, we'd be in great shape. My response today is, if we did and Donald Trump were in charge of it, I'd be very careful. So my perspective is very much an American perspective. We don't have that heritage, and to build it now would be impossible for us. So I fear, in America, government involvement in media and speech in any way. You have the ABC protected, it's a gem, it's wonderful, but it's not going to work in America. What I would argue, however, what I argue to public broadcasters around the world, is that they should redefine the notion of public. That they should see themselves not in a position of competing with private media, but supporting private media. Second, and the ABC said to me today, they're now linking more to the private media outlets. They should be making open source all their innovations. They should be experimenting more on behalf of the media industry. that public can get a new definition. As long as you have that gem, it can work in new ways.
Over here.
Claire Collins, Insight Communications. We're a boutique PR agency and we work across the not-for-profit sector. I've got an observation and a question. The observation is one of our campaigns is for, it's a national campaign for a missing child. Before we started that campaign, I thought a troll was a short, unattractive dog. But we find that we have been absolutely bombarded with the ugliest side of humanity that I could even hope to see. Where I'm going with this is about ethics in regards to Facebook, in terms of how they manage their policies and their procedures. There's a lot of inadequacy in their training. In terms of privacy, it seems to me that the troll is the one that is given the right of privacy and respect rather than the victim. And this has been going on for 2 years, so I'm quite adept at understanding how it works. And I'll give you an example.
Sorry, can we just get to your question?
Yes, the example is, when are they going to, the question is, when are they going to address the rights of the victims as opposed to the rights of the perpetrators? And my next quick question is, where do you see public relations in the mix of this? So far we've talked about journalists and we've talked about public. But public relations traditionally has always played a conduit role to
So I would, on the first, I think the attitude of the platforms, of Facebook, Twitter, and Google, is that they would rather not be in a position of killing things and censoring things. Rather, what they are learning is that they don't promote it. And so, yes, they will kill the worst of hate speech, they'll follow local laws, but what they're trying to learn basically is not to add fuel to that fire. On the privacy works a lot of ways. There is an argument by some that anonymity is the root of trolling. Well, I can give you assholes by name. So I don't think that anonymity solves the problem. And anonymity provides the opportunity for the oppressed and the vulnerable to be able to find a public platform. So these are prices that we have to pay, I think, to take along the openness that we now have to figure it out. On PR, or I'll be an asshole myself. Not for the first time. One could say that public relations was early in the fake news industry, right? The public relations helped companies tell their story in isolation. Now, I'm not saying that myself, but I'm saying that public relations now, as we talked about earlier, has to learn a new responsibility, which we see companies starting to do. So I welcome that. So I would actually argue that public relations potentially holds a very important role if it leaves the title of its industry. That rather than being the representative of the company to the public, to be the representative of the public to the company, is where the opportunity for PR is. And we see this happening, I think, over and over again, where you see a company that behaves badly, then the PR should be able to say, folks, this is what you're doing wrong, you're messing up, you've got to change your ways to be responsible. So public relations, I think, has a real opportunity now to change the culture of companies. The hard part of that is, if the company still misbehaves, you got to fire your client. That's not easy. And don't take the crack about fake news.
we only do those sorts of campaigns.
Sorry, we've only got time for one more question over here.
Connie Morrell from Monash. My question is, do you think that Facebook and Google earn too much money and shouldn't they pay more tax? At the moment, they're giving out bunches of money to academics and to institutions. Isn't that, or couldn't that be a problem? I know you said you're going to be independent, but isn't there a problem now that they're going to start giving out little amounts of money that are going to make us happy because we're going to take it? And
yeah, I think that's perfectly legitimate, and I debated long and hard about taking the money. I finally said, if we argue that they should be helping journalism, and I will help them help journalism, then, so yes, I'm in this position, I'm in a conflict of interest, fully realized. This notion that they earn too much money is a funny thing to me, because find me the statute that defines much and too much.
well, perhaps because they're leeching other people's other media organizations.
Well, let's talk about that for 1 second. I know I have 1 second. God did not give us the revenue we had. We are not entitled to it in the media industry. They're not leeching our money. What they did was they competed with us. They offered advertisers a much better deal. They took the risk that we did not take in media. They gave advertisers a better sense of their customers and more direct voice to them because they knew more about them, because we still treated everybody like a mass. So I don't blame them for that. I blame us for losing the business. We messed that up. We could have done a lot of things to have changed the way we operated and have been more aware of communities and relevance and know people as individuals. Facebook and Google, gigantic companies, are personal services companies. No two people on earth, Mark Zuckerberg said to me, see the same Facebook. Google gives me the results different from you. But a media company still says I'm the same as everybody else. That's our own damn fault. We lost the business. Now, having said that, obviously there's political pressure on Google and Facebook, especially in Europe, especially in Germany. And so right now, because of regulatory pressure and legislative pressure and political pressure, they need friends. So yes, I was there to say, let's work. And I think that what my real hope is they will help us strategically in our businesses. That doesn't mean handing us pennies, because those pennies will go away. We don't need their charity. What we need is their strategic help. What we need is for Facebook especially, I think, to teach us how to build relationships with people and communities as communities. They have those skills and we don't. They also have data about our users we could use to give people greater relevance with respect to their privacy. Google can teach us a great deal about how to give people greater relevance. These are skills that I would like to see them transfer from them to us. Now that means that we have to be open enough to learning that and listening to that. They have to be open enough to giving that to us. And that's what I work on kind of every day, is to try to build bridges between Google and Facebook and the publishers. And I'm not succeeding, but I'm trying. Because I think that we have to recognize the reality that they're there. All of our whining and complaining and all of our hiding behind the skirts of politicians is not going to make them go away. If we have any hope, we have to rely on their help and work together on a better and informed society. And that's what I think the fake news thing is really making us do, is to recognize the emergency and try to work together. But then, I'm an optimist.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. You can continue your questions upstairs. We're going to ask you to join us for a drink. You go outside and just up one, is up the flight of stairs or an escalator? Oh, out the front. But please join me. Sorry.
Immediately here.
Yeah, they're all. The drinks are out there. So join me in thanking Jeff Jarvis.
It's like